Hi everyone, we are Team 38 for Cloud and Cluster Computing Project 2. This video is to show our web-based application. So, big data has been a buzzword for many years. Mining the information and knowledge behind these data could deliver huge business and research values to companies and organizations. Twitter is one of the most popular social media among people. People are more connected by Twitter. So these tweet data can be used as research materials in human emotional and behavioral researches. This project aims to use public cloud platform Nectar to handle a large amount of social media data provided by Twitter and implement sentimental analysis behind the big data, and then visualize this data on our web-based application. So, our team used program written in Python to harvest the tweets from both Twitter Streaming API and Twitter Search API. And we gathered about 3 million data in Melbourne. For dataset, 2.8 million data are gathered by our harvester, and 0.2 million data are from Richard's CouchDB. We used TextBlob to implement sentiment analysis. In order to explore the potential meaning behind the big data, we prepared several scenarios related to happiness, and we want to find out the underlying relationship between these contributing factors and happiness. These factors are income, that is average income per person per week, age, that is median age of the area, education, that is percentage of people having received higher education, children, that is percentage of people living with children, and volunteer, that is total number of volunteers in the area. So MapReduce functions were used to transform tweet data into statistics data, and front-end displays these data as charts. By doing this, we could acquire a clear view of the sense of happiness among people in Melbourne. Here, we can see a map of Melbourne. We visualize all kinds of statistics data on this map. So there are altogether 6 topics here on the panel. If you click on the sentiment, this map will show sentimental value for each district. When you hover your mouse over one district, you are gonna see a tag popping up. On this tag, you can find these 6 statistics data for this district, which are all gathered and processed by the backend. You can find the average sentiment polarity value, total count of tweets in this district, and average income for this district, and average age, and the percentage of people who have received higher education, and the percentage of people who are living with children, and also the total number of volunteers in this district. And you may find that different districts have different shades of color. So the deeper the color is, the higher the value is. For example, when I click on this sentiment, these different shades of color indicate different sentiment polarity values. Through this way, we can clearly identify that in which districts people are happier like this Walan. However, in those districts with a lighter color, for example, Yarra Valley and Kowe Road, people are less happy. Similarly, if you click on the income, you will find that districts with higher income are here, whereas Melbourne CBD and nearby area. So people in those further suburbs tend to gain less income in average. Likewise, if you click on age, you will find the median age for people in these districts are older, and maybe people in these districts are younger. It is very interesting when you click on education. So you can see a clear data distribution in this map. You will find people who have received higher education are gathered in Melbourne CBD and nearby areas. And this works the same for children and volunteer. So if this district has more volunteers, the color will appear deeper. This page is about sentimental analysis in different scenarios. So this first scatter plot shows the relationship between average income and sentiment. We found that most dots are gathered where the average income ranges from $600 to $800. Also, we found that sentiment is not in proportion to income, so the highest sentiment score is not in the rich region. Maybe the reason is that rich people may undertake too much pressure from workplace, and they are too busy to relax, so they are easy to stress out. Meanwhile, ordinary people with average income have more time to accompany family and friends and enjoy life, so they have more time to relax, and they are more active in social media. The second plot is about the relationship between median age in one district and sentiment. So we found out that middle-aged people's sentiment scores are relatively high, and the reason might be that middle-aged people have stable family and income, and they would like to involve in social activities. The third plot is about the relationship between higher education percentage and sentiment. So the percentage of the population with higher education in Melbourne districts varies significantly from 2% to 71%. And in average, about 20% of the Twitter users in Melbourne receive a higher education. And we also find that people in areas where the percentage of people with higher education takes up to 50% to 70%, do not seem to live in a happy life. Meanwhile, people live in districts with a percentage of 15% to 35% tend to have heavy emotional fluctuations. The fourth plot is about the relationship between living with children percentage and sentiment. So we discovered that around 80% of people have children at home, and when people live with kids, their moods appear a lot more unstable than people living without children. And the last scatter plot is about the relationship between total volunteer number and sentiment. So we discovered a slight positive correlation between volunteer quantity and sentimental score. And for those areas with more than 2,000 volunteers, they tend to have higher average sentiment score. The next three charts are not related to specific districts. They actually reflect the overall mood of people in Melbourne. So this pie chart shows a percentage of negative, neutral, and positive tweets in Melbourne. And we can easily discover that most tweets, around 65% of tweets in Melbourne reflect a positive mood, and only 22% of tweets show a negative mood, which account for 1/4 of the total tweets. And in this chart, the line shows the daily sentimental change in Melbourne, while these bars show the tweet count every day in a week. And we can see that people's moods are relatively stable from Monday to Sunday, because you should notice that the start point for the average sentiment is not 0, and similarly the start point for the tweet count is not 0 as well. So generally speaking, these sentimental values are stable during the week, but there is a slight decrease from Wednesday to Thursday, and people become happier from Thursday to Friday. It's very interesting to see that people actually are happier on Friday than Saturday, and their moods reach a peak on Sunday. So it seems that people enjoy Sunday and Friday most during the week. Meanwhile, tweet count is relatively stable but very low from Tuesday to Friday, which is around 180,000 per day. However, from Friday to Saturday to Sunday, tweet count increases significantly. So tweet daily count reached a peak at around 260,000 on Saturday and Sunday. We can infer that people in Melbourne tend to send more tweets during the weekend. So in this chart, similarly, this line shows the hourly sentimental change in Melbourne, and these bars indicate the count of tweets by hour. So sentiment polarity value for each hour is relatively stable, ranging from 0.18 to 0.21. We can infer that most people have a positive mood in Melbourne, and no wonder that Melbourne is the most livable city in the world. As we can see clearly from this chart, there are slight differences on people's mood from hour to hour, and sentiment polarity value slightly declines from 12 a.m. to 12 p.m. People at 12 p.m. Have the worst mood of a day. Then they seem to become happier and happier from 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. People's sentiment polarity reaches a peak at 8 p.m. and we can infer that they may have the best mood when they start to enjoy nightlife at 8 p.m. As to the tweet count per hour, we can see the trend clearly from those bars. From 12 a.m. to 12 p.m., there are approximately 85,000 tweets per hour. However, the count drops sharply from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. There are only 20,000 tweets at 6 p.m. This is probably because people are busy at work and have no time to send tweets. And after 6 p.m., tweet count increases slowly again.